Early morning. Iman came to work as usual. He had successfully secured a position as a cashier at the bank despite not having any formal education. Despite the prestigious job, his clerk's salary of only 2,000 ringgits was insufficient for his living expenses. His thoughts are interrupted by a regular client of the bank, a little old lady who hands Iman a bag of 1-cent coins that she needs to exchange. The young man tries to tell the woman that they don't accept such small change, but the bank's administrator, Mr. Reza, steps in. Reza orders Iman to take the bag of coins and apologize to the old woman. This completely ruins the young man's mood, and he decides to take a break, having a coffee with his friend, Intan. The head of the computer security department, Intan has been Iman's best friend since childhood. However, she can't join him at that moment because her boss, Irene, informs Intan of another system breach. Intan asks her friend for help. She remembers that he was good with computers since school. Iman finds a program in the system, Digital Karma, which turns out to be very smart and hard to remove from the bank's server. After a few minutes, Iman manages to clean the system of the malicious program and save the bank's clients money. His friend thanks him for this, but even at this moment, he can't bring himself to tell Intan that he likes her. Moreover, he makes a serious mistake. He offers her a latte, forgetting that she can't stand coffee with milk. In the evening, Iman finds himself in another unpleasant situation. He barely makes it home, clutching his stomach, but the toilet is occupied by his father. The old man leisurely exits the restroom, and while Iman finds relief, his father tells him about his new business. He spent his last money on black cumin tablets, which, according to marketers, can save lives. The old man promises Iman that he will soon sell all the tablets and return the money that was meant for the apartment rent. The men quarrel, and Iman leaves for his room, but a few minutes later, he hears a strange noise. When he returns, he finds his father unconscious on the floor. Intan arrives at the hospital to support her friend. It turns out his father had a heart attack. The doctors tell the young man that his father needs surgery, but it costs 60,000, which he doesn't have. Iman asks his boss for a loan, but Reza refuses to lend him a large sum. He even refuses to put Iman on staff, which would increase his salary a bit. Visiting his father in the evening, Iman doesn't know what to do or how to save the old man. The situation becomes even more serious when Iman is confronted by his father's old friends. It turns out the old man borrowed money from local gangsters, and they give the young man 2 days to repay his father's debt. Arriving at work, Iman surprises everyone with a bruise on his face, but he is no less surprised when a new employee, Ash Lee, appears in the department, showing attention to Intan. Iman struggles to work. He constantly thinks about the debt and how to save his father. The troublesome old lady returns this time with a different complaint. She is unhappy that 1 cent is being deducted from her account for service charges. Her yelling gives Iman a brilliant idea. He can steal just 1 cent from each account, which will give him enough money to repay the gangsters and save his father. The young man spends the entire night writing a malicious program to help him execute his plan. He disguises the virus in an email and sends it to Reza's inbox to infiltrate the bank's system. When the boss opens the file, the program spreads to all the bank's computers, and a system reboot initiated by Intan to fix the errors helps the virus gain access to the accounts. Finally, Iman manages to withdraw 1 cent from each account and transfer the money to an old abandoned account. But Iman's joy is short-lived when the creditors appear, and he has to escape through the window. The gangsters chase Iman, but he manages to get into a stranger's car and, for a hefty sum, asks the driver to take him to a bank on the other side of the city. On the way, the young man transfers the money to an account from which he can withdraw 90,000. The gangsters pursue the car, but for an additional fee, the driver agrees to participate in the chase. Finally, he delivers Iman to the bank branch, and the 1 cent thief calmly withdraws the money. Iman gives the needed amount to the gangsters and pays the taxi driver the promised bonus. After that, the young man collapses on the ground, realizing there is no turning back. The remaining money Iman takes to the hospital to pay for his father's surgery. The next day, he arrives at work with a joyful smile, unaware that his troubles are just beginning. In the evening, he visits his father and reflects on the fact that he would do the same again to save him. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the city, the gangsters kill Reza. Iman starts having nightmares, but he reassures himself that they are just his imagination. He spends his free time with his father, hoping that the stolen money wasn't in vain and that he can save the old man's life. The bank finds out about the theft, but at first, the management doesn't want to report it to the police to avoid panic. Things become much more serious when the bank learns about Reza's death. Everyone becomes scared, but Iman is especially frightened. He is sure that the boss's tragedy happened because of his robbery. week-TREU, the head of security, appears in the office. He orders the employees to stay at their workstations until the police arrive and to tell the officers everything they know about the incident. Iman tries to remain calm, but when he remembers the email he sent to Reza's computer, it becomes clear he needs to do something. Overwhelmed with anxiety, the clerk feels sick and runs to the bathroom to relieve some stress. There, Iman meets another employee who has access to the restricted floor. He steals a protective film from the colleague's smartphone and uses it to forge a fingerprint. Disguised in a janitor's uniform, Iman sneaks to the required floor. First, he breaks into the administration office, deletes the camera recordings, and prepares a pass to access the server room. When the program asks for an employee's name, Iman decides to kill two birds with one stone and enters Ash Lee's name to get rid of Intan's suitor. While the young man tries to destroy the evidence, the head of security calls Intan and Ash Lee for a conversation. Meanwhile, one of the employees hears a strange noise, but Iman manages to remain unnoticed. Intan discovers a system update made by someone unknown. Everyone realizes that the criminal is inside the building, and the police start searching for the hacker. In the server room, Iman begins to panic, but gathers himself and starts working. At that moment, MILLIONAIRE receives a notification that someone entered the server room using Ash Lee's card. The head of security forbids the young man from leaving the office. The others head to the server room to try to find the thief. Iman manages to delete the file seconds before being discovered. He escapes, but runs into a security guard in the hallway and nearly gets caught. The guard doesn't recognize the clerk and calls him over only to return the fallen protective film. After that, Iman removes the janitor's uniform and hurries to his workstation. At this time, MILLIONAIRE examines the empty desk, but the clerk manages to emerge from under the desk, pretending he was picking up a dropped pen. MILLIONAIRE tries to figure out which of the employees might be involved in the crime and asks Intan if there is anyone else in the bank who could hack the system. The young woman realizes that only Iman has such skills. The young man tries to calm himself down, convinced that no one will figure out what he did. Terror grips Iman again when his friend asks him to go to the roof and check the access log for the server room. But he manages to convince Intan that he didn't leave his workstation and couldn't be involved. Iman tells his friend about the surgery that supposedly was paid for by his father's relatives. That evening, he visits his father in the hospital and is happy that the old man has finally come to. The doctor assures the young man that his father will be fine, but she informs him that he needs to pay an additional $15,000 for maintenance and medications. Iman realizes that he can't get the money the same way again. The virus has been removed, and the police are closely monitoring the bank, but he decides to take a risk and perform the 1-cent theft trick at other banks. This time, Iman doesn't act as boldly. He is afraid his scam will be exposed, but remembering his father, he realizes he has no other choice. After a few hours, Iman's account holds 800,000 ringgits. 2 weeks later, Intan continues to search for the culprit. She checks the server, and Ash helps her. He suggests his colleague take a break, but Intan doesn't trust him and decides to work alone. Irene removes Intan from her position and places Ash in her place. The upset young woman returns to her desk and learns that her subordinate was able to recover some files from the surveillance cameras. In one of the recordings, Intan recognizes Iman. The young man buys an expensive car and brings his father to an elite apartment he bought with the stolen money. The old man understands that his son's money was acquired dishonestly, but he pretends not to notice anything. But the family's idyll doesn't last long. A doorbell rings, and Devin and his henchmen appear on the doorstep. The uninvited guests sit at the table and eat the dinner that Iman had prepared for his father. The gangsters behave very rudely, and looking at them, the old man remembers how similar thugs took his car several years ago. Back then, little Iman defended his father, but now the father lacks the courage to protect his son, who was being mocked and ridiculed by the invaders. Intan re-examines the camera footage, but she doesn't tell Ash about it. However, when the young man comes to talk to his friend about her suspension, it turns out he already knows about the recovered footage. Iman tries to come up with a story about how he got rich, but Devin turns out to be a smart guy. He realizes he's being deceived. Using a hammer, the gangster finds arguments to convince the young man to tell the truth. Meanwhile, Ash Lee assembles a team and constructs a timeline of events on the day when someone deleted data from the server. Intan joins the team. She doesn't say she saw Iman in the footage, but promises to help figure everything out. Iman recalls his poor childhood. Already then, his father couldn't earn properly and constantly only dreamed of phones. While Intan gathers more evidence implicating her friend, he has to reveal his secret to Devin. The gangster doesn't give the young man a chance to save his father until Iman reveals his criminal scheme. Iman is forced to transfer the money he siphoned from others' accounts to the gangster's account. When the old man regains consciousness and tries to shame his son, Iman reminds him of his poor and hungry childhood. The young man admits he vividly remembers his parents' fights and regrets such a past. Meanwhile, Devon's crew enjoys the pool and the views from the rooftop of a skyscraper. They use Iman as a servant, but the young man gets the idea to escape by stealing a gun from the raiders. The plan fails. Iman doesn't know how to handle a gun and doesn't take it off safety. For this, the robber punishes the young man severely, and his father silently watches again, not attempting to protect his son. Iman recalls how his mother left home without even hugging him goodbye. He mentally bids farewell to life, but finally, the old man gathers the courage and points the gun at the bandit's temple. Ashley discovers that Intan deleted one of the files her colleague had given her. The young man asks his friend if she needs help, but Intan assures him she has no secrets. In reality, the young woman finds several more recordings where Iman's face is clearly visible. Iman and his father escape, but the robbers find them in the parking lot and open fire. The fugitives barely manage to reach their car, but finally, they drive out of the complex. Devon and his team don't give up. The chase begins on the night road. However, Iman's car runs out of gas, and the men have to hide in the narrow streets of the city. The old man's heart begins to fail, and he runs out of strength. Iman has to leave his father and run alone to avoid being caught by the gangsters. Intan wakes up from memories. Many years ago, the young woman also broke the law and taught Iman to do the same. At the time, it seemed like an easy game to her, but now she didn't know what to do and how to save her friend. Things become even harder for the young woman after she receives a message from her mother. The woman demands that Intan send her money and asks her not to come over the weekend and ruin her plans. Iman calls his friend and asks her to come to an abandoned construction site. Finding her friend in a bad state, Intan takes him to her place. Meanwhile, in his lair, Devon feeds his feeble father. The gangster enjoys the old man's suffering, who had treated him and his mother cruelly many years ago. Iman's father watches the scene nearby. Seeing how the bandit treats his father, the old hostage realizes he has no chance of being saved. Iman takes a shower and gets rid of his knocked-out teeth. While Intan hears the water running, she decides to check her friend's computer. The young woman doesn't manage to do it. Her friend comes out of the bathroom and takes the laptop. Intan then demands explanations, but the clerk refuses to talk about his problems and assures her he just fell. Devon sends the fugitive a video message in which he uses a hammer again to convince the young man to come for his father. Intan starts having problems. Ash tells her that Irene demands all the video files from the cameras. The young man asks her to send them to the office, including those that were deleted. Taking advantage of the young woman being busy with the conversation, Iman escapes. Realizing he can't handle it alone, Iman decides to seek help. He makes a call, and an hour later, the young man descends into the city's underworld. Iman meets the guy who drove him to the bank on the day of the first robbery. The drug dealer is unhappy that Iman wants to involve him in a criminal story. He punishes his friend for being pushy and refuses the fee Iman could have paid him. Ash covers for Intan and tells Irene that all the videos were damaged. The young woman thanks her colleague, but he asks her to tell him the truth to understand what he's getting into. Iman witnesses an attack on a city cafe. While the young man is distracted by the shooting, an old friend appears behind him who seems to have changed his mind and is ready to help. The blonde leads Iman to a secluded place and demands a down payment. When the money is transferred, the young man tells Iman about Ibu Zara, a woman from the criminal world who is much more dangerous than Devon. Meanwhile, Ibu Zara finds a man who tried to do something horrible to a little girl. Recalling her own terrible childhood, Ibu Zara promises to become a protector for the girl, and her henchmen do their job. Devon also punishes his men. He is furious that they let Iman escape. The young man's father barely survives the ordeal, but it seems to him that he hears his son's voice, which gives the old man strength. The blonde arranges a meeting for Iman with Ibu Zara. The young man says his friend needs help, and Iman promises Ibu Zara any amount of money for saving his father. As proof, the young man transfers the first part of the sum to the woman's account. But Ibu Zara also refuses to deal with Devon and kicks the young man out of the car. Intan watches the video several times and finally decides to tell Ash everything. She comes to his place and tells him that Iman is hiding the truth, but it turns out that the young man is not the only one involved in the bank's scams. Ash found out that Irene also tried to delete some data. Stubborn Iman returns to his old acquaintance and asks for help again. He promises his friend a very large sum of money, and the dealer finally agrees. The young men sneak into Devon's lair, and Iman finds his father, but they don't manage to leave. Devon and his men enter the room to enjoy their power and destroy the captives. Suddenly, armed men burst through the door, and a shootout begins. Taking advantage of this, the young men try to escape and take the old man with them, but Devon stubbornly refuses to let them go. A shot is heard from the far corner of the room. Devon falls to the floor, and Iman sees a joyful Ibu Zara in front of him. It seems that having freed himself from one pursuer, the young man has fallen into the hands of a more dangerous gangster. Iman has a nervous breakdown because of everything that has happened to him, but his friend takes the young man and his father away so they don't fall into the hands of the police. Since early childhood, Iman was good with computer programs, and Intan was always proud of her friend. Now this becomes the young woman's nightmare as she falls asleep in Ash's apartment. Ash makes breakfast for his colleague and suggests continuing the discussion about the situation. But before that, he asks her to tell him about herself so they can get to know each other better. The shootout at Devon's lair is reported on TV. Iman realizes he has gotten into a very serious story, and to confirm his words, there is a knock on the door. An associate of Ibu Zara is at the doorstep, asking Iman to come with him. Intan finds out that Iman paid for his father's surgery at a private clinic. The young woman understands that her friend somehow got the money, but she doesn't know about the stolen cents and can't figure out the system. Additionally, the pair tries to find out what Irene was doing with the computer. Ash suggests checking all the logs where Irene's authorization should have been saved. Iman is brought to Ibu Zara's house where she is recording an interview about her charitable activities. The woman helps single mothers and abandoned children. The woman asks the guest to help her unzip her dress, and on Zara's back, Iman sees a terrible scar from her past life. The young man tries to understand what the influential woman wants from him, but Ibu Zara is in no hurry to explain. Instead, she takes the young man to the city center, tells him about the injustices of life, and offers him a job. Iman understands he has no choice. If he refuses, he will face the fate of all of Ibu Zara's enemies. Intan tries to find out who paid for the old man's surgery, but they refuse to provide her with that information. While the young woman talks with the administrator, Ash discovers that access is closed everywhere, and to get answers, they will have to check all the servers. Zara hires Iman, demanding half of his loot. The young man understands this is the best option available, but a black jeep appears nearby, and new, unknown enemies take the young man away. This time, the young man is taken by the police, who demand he turn in Madame Zara. The young man assures the cops that he is just a volunteer at Ibu Zara's foundation, but the officers don't believe a man's testimony and decide to make him talk. Unaware of what happened to his son, the old man packs his things to flee. He is interrupted by a call from Intan, who says she will visit soon to check on her old friend. Iman doesn't give in to the police's persuasion, and they dump him on the outskirts of the city. As soon as the young man regains consciousness, his father calls and asks him to come to the old apartment urgently. The old man manages to get home just as Ash and Intan arrive. The host tries to distract the guest by talking about how he dreams of marrying off his son, but when Iman arrives, it becomes clear that marriage is the last thing on his mind right now. As usual, Iman invents a story about how he fell, but his friends don't believe it, just as they don't believe the story about distant relatives who paid for the old man's surgery. Then Intan shows her friend the footage from the cameras, but the young man wriggles out of it and makes up another excuse. This deeply disappoints Intan, who had trusted the young man since childhood. Iman arrives at the station with his father and buys 2 tickets to another city. But at the station, the young man notices he is being followed, and he decides to postpone the trip until better times. The thief tries to figure out how he was tracked and suspects Intan. To divert suspicion from himself, the young man decides to frame a colleague whose fingerprint he stole on the day of the robbery. Shimad opens the virus-laden email that Iman sent him. The clerk finds a message about a vacation and 2 tickets to a resort, supposedly received from the bank's management. Iman hacks into Shimad's home and work computers, and on the day his colleague is absent, he plants evidence on his desk, a card in Ash's name that was used to access the server room. Intan finds her partner in her office, but Ash says he had to take her computer to restore Reza's data. At that moment, they are asked to come to the hall where an incident occurred. Someone is trying to hack the service again from Shimad's computer. Despite all precautions, Intan suspects Iman is involved in the new attack, but the trail leads her to another employee, Shimad, whom the security service is sent after. Everything falls into place. The suspicion completely shifts to Shimad, and the card on his desk confirms it. The man is arrested and taken from the office. Despite his success, Iman suffers from guilt. He stops to deal with the stress, but the familiar cops again take the young man for questioning. The story repeats, but Iman doesn't give up. He assures the police he knows nothing about Ibu Zara's criminal life and will not testify against her. After these words, the woman enters the cell and admits it was a loyalty test. Iman executed his first scams as a child. An adult acquaintance helped him create free transit passes. Back then, Intan helped her friend and was happy to participate in secret operations. Even then, the teenagers talked about money being the main problem. Iman's mother left for a wealthy friend, while Intan's parents were never home because they were always trying to earn money. One day, the girl went with her friend to visit his mother, but the woman refused to come out because she didn't need her son. Intan always worried about her friend, and now she came to him to apologize. The young people managed to talk, but in the end, a man confesses that he is leaving the bank. He tells the girl that he got a job as a web developer at a company, but in reality, the young man starts working for Zara, siphoning 1 cent from different banks every week. Half of the profits go to him. To protect himself, he withdraws small amounts of cash and hides them at home, under the ceiling. The young man's behavior begins to worry his father, and they have arguments. Ian accuses the old man of never thinking about the family. Unlike her friend, Intan's relationship with Ash improves. The couple has dinner together and spends a lot of time together. A strange old man appears at Iman's apartment entrance. When the young man tries to find out what he wants, the stranger attacks. In the office, Intan approaches Ash to greet him, but he unexpectedly closes his computer. The young woman doesn't notice this because she is asked to check information about an inactive account. A large sum was transferred to it many years later. Investigating this account, Intan and Ash discover the 1 cent theft from every account in their bank. But it has already been 2 months since then, and finding the culprit will be difficult. Inspecting her non-detergent powder factory, Zara calls Iman and warns him that the old man in the hallway is a guard assigned to protect him and his father. Also, the woman tells the thief that her appetite has grown. Now she wants him to bring her 10 million. Iman calculates all the moves and realizes he can't withdraw 1 cent more frequently. He has only one option: return to his bank and increase the commission amount. While Intan and Ash check the computers, a glitch occurs, and the girl suspects that someone is trying to access the system again. The TV announces that the Digital Karma Group, which has carried out multiple bank attacks, is responsible. Iman tries to mend his relationship with his father, and during dinner the men joke and laugh. Screams begin to come from the hallway, and Iman has to go out to check. The young man sees his old friend, the blonde. He asks the old man to step aside so the friend can visit him. The blonde becomes Iman's assistant in the new heist, and as thanks, the thief decides to take his friend and father shopping. The group buys expensive suits and watches, a high-speed luxury car, and heads to town to have some fun before the risky mission. Meanwhile, Intan and Ash find a way to connect to the account through which the thief transfers money. Following his usual scheme, Iman calls the bank and arranges a cash withdrawal. Everything goes perfectly in the first few minutes, but the young man is distracted by his father's shout, who is unhappy with the blonde's presence in their home. Iman has to break up the men and asks his friend to go with him to carry out the illegal transaction. Instead of a bank, the young men arrive at a nightclub, and the blonde offers his friend a pink pill. The thieves have a great time with girls, dancing and playing cards. For the first time, Iman indulges himself and enjoys having enough money to live. This gives the young man courage, and he starts a fight, no longer wanting to be a victim. He throws money around and feels like a hero until he sees Ibu Zara before his eyes. Ash brings Intan home and promises to monitor the account so they can catch the thief, but Iman is too unwell to return to work just yet. After recovering, Iman invites Intan to meet. The young man arrives at the date in a beautiful suit with a rose, but the second gift impresses the girl more. Ian gives her a card they forged together as children. Iman confesses his love to his friend, but she doesn't reciprocate. She leaves the rose and walks away. At this moment, the young man feels his life is over. The young man returns to the club and decides to party without thinking about Intan. In the morning, 2 unfamiliar girls wake up next to Iman. His father tries to talk sense into him and bring him back to a normal life, but the young man is convinced that only this way will he be respected and his mother will return to the family. Intan visits Ash and tells him about the conversation with her old friend. The girl admits to her colleague that she rejected Iman because she loves him. Ash confesses that he is pleased to hear this, but he is not who he pretends to be, and they can't be together. The girl leaves, but Ash tries to catch up with her and explain everything. Despite the doctor's orders, Iman's father takes out a hidden pack of cigarettes. At this time, the young man arrives at his mother's house to show off his expensive car. Ash doesn't have time to reveal his secret to Intan. A motorcycle appears, and several bullets hit the young man. Iman gives his mother a necklace and asks her to return home. They are now wealthy, and she won't have to suffer from poverty. The woman confesses that she didn't leave because of money, but refuses to name the real reason. She also refuses to return. She has a new son, and she chooses to stay with him. Intan gives a statement to the police and learns that while Ash went after her, someone was rummaging through his apartment. Iman learns from the news about Ash's assassination attempt and recognizes the criminal, one of Zara's henchmen. The young man questions his boss, and Zara says that Ash found out their scheme and they had to eliminate him. The young man declares that he no longer wants to work for Zara, but the woman doesn't intend to let the thief go. She hints that his departure could harm Intan. Irene visits Intan to support her. She suggests the young woman take a few days off and tries to find out if Ash shared any secrets with her. Furthermore, Irene assures Intan that Ash was the thief. He downloaded personal data and carried out criminal schemes. Iman is sure he must warn Intan. Zara has her person in the bank, and if the girl continues digging, she might be in danger. The blonde tries to dissuade his friend, but Iman insists, if necessary, he will destroy Zara. A nurse informs someone that Ash is alive. She is ordered to bring the young man and hand him over to the right people. Zara gives a suitcase of money to her minister and asks for help in running for the next election. The official considers it a foolish idea and makes it clear to the woman that he won't let her take his place. Iman packs all the money he managed to save into a bag and leaves without explaining anything to his father. The police don't let Intan into the ward and inform her that Ash has disappeared. The girl heads home but notices the motorcyclist who attacked Ash on the way. At that moment, a notification arrives on the colleague's phone that the girl took, stating that he established the hacker's IP address. The blonde takes Iman to an abandoned place and they come under fire. The young men are invited inside and they head to a meeting with Devon's gang. Iman is rewarded for Devon's death, but the bag of money calms the men. They ask why the young man came and he asks for help. He wants to get rid of Ibu Zara. The navigator leads Intan to Iman's house, but she is met by a strange old man who tries to take the bag from her. Iman's father comes to help. He orders the guard to let the girl in, who came to visit him. Intan asks the old man to tell her how they got rich and what happened to Iman. Inspecting her friend's computer, the girl realizes that he is the thief. While the minister gives a speech and blames the hacks on digital karma, Iman plans to eliminate Zara. To carry out his plan, Iman returns to the computer cafe where he spent his childhood. There, Intan finds him. She tells her friend that she knows the truth about his job. This drives Iman crazy, and he yells at his father for letting the girl into the house. Intan tells Irene the truth, and the boss promises to take action. She asks the young woman to report the incident to the police, but when Intan leaves, Irene reports the problem to Zara. Iman rents a hotel room for his father and buys a train ticket. He asks the old man to leave if he doesn't contact him at a certain time tomorrow. The men say goodbye, realizing they won't see each other again. Intan brings the police to the server room while Iman and the group prepare to attack Zara. The group arrives at the cafe where the gangster is having lunch and starts the operation, but the blonde turns out to be a traitor and all the henchmen are killed. Only Iman is left alive. The blonde takes Iman to Zara's house and punishes him for attempting to betray the mistress. But the young man has worse news. The news reports his scams, and Iman realizes that Intan turned him in. Zara demands that the young man teach her how to siphon 1 cent from other accounts. She uses a bag of rats as an argument. After the young man gives in and reveals the scheme, the blonde is tasked with eliminating him. Iman manages to escape, and during the chase, the killer becomes a victim of a car accident. By chance, Intan follows Zara's trail and understands who is behind Iman. The gangster doesn't waste time either. She breaks into the minister's room and informs him that his night companion is only 16 years old. This forces the official to give up his position to Zara. Iman goes to his mother's house to hide. The young man comes to his senses, and the woman confesses that she missed him all these years. Learning that Zara is running for office, Iman decides to stop her. Intan also starts digging into the gangster and learns about large transactions. The girl is stopped by henchmen who have been working in the bank all this time. She is taken to Irene, and Intan realizes that everyone around was in cahoots. Intan bursts into the bank and orders everyone to get down on the floor. Hearing this, Intan tries to run to her friend, but Irene doesn't intend to let the girl go easily. Iman's father waits for him at the station and learns about the events from the screen. Meanwhile, a SWAT team arrives at the bank. Iman goes to the server room to delete the virus and gather evidence against Zara. But as the young man starts working, Intan points a machine gun at him. Iman apologizes to his friend and asks her to call the police. He confesses that he is ready to surrender. The cops bring Iman's father, and the old man asks his son not to do anything stupid again. Hearing the old man's speech, Intan allows her friend to delete the virus and download compromising evidence on Zara. One of Zara's henchmen tries to eliminate the thief before the police arrive. Intan intervenes in the fight, and to save his friend, Iman shields her from the bullet. Iman is taken to the hospital. His father and friend are not allowed to accompany the criminal. The news about Zara's crimes hits the screens. At the same time, it is reported that the ambulance carrying Iman disappeared along with the thief. The young man wakes up in the digital karma camp. Finally, he is safe, and the new gang member is greeted by its leader, Ash.